6-3, 6-love, and just like that, another opponent disappears. But here's the real question. How does a 22-year-old already have 300 career wins and still look like he's just getting started? Because what we witnessed in Monte Carlo wasn't just another victory for Carlos Alcaraz. It was something deeper, something that quietly sent a message to the entire tennis world. And trust me, there's one detail about this milestone that most fans are completely overlooking, and it might change how you see his career trajectory forever. Now think about this for a second. Alexander Bublik is not your typical opponent. He's unpredictable, chaotic, and honestly, one of the hardest players to find rhythm against. One moment he's serving bombs. The next he's hitting underarm serves or slicing from impossible angles. Players don't just beat Bublik. They survive him. But Alcaraz didn't survive. He solved him. That first set looked competitive on the surface. 6-3 doesn't scream domination. But if you actually watched closely, you could see the pattern forming. Alcaraz started sharp, aggressive, almost too eager. He had chances to go double breakup early, but couldn't quite convert. And for a brief moment, it looked like Bublik's unpredictability might pull him off track. And then something changed. This is what separates Alcaraz from almost everyone else on tour right now. The ability to reset mid-match. Not just physically, but mentally. He admitted it himself after the match. He lost the feeling of the ball for a stretch. That's something most players panic about. That's where matches slip away. But instead of forcing it, he adapted. He started defending more, running side to side, absorbing pressure, instead of trying to dominate every point. And slowly, almost invisibly, the momentum flipped. The games he managed to hold during that awkward phase, those were the turning point. Because once he found his rhythm again, it was over. The second set, 6-0, wasn't just a scoreline. It was a statement. Clean, ruthless, and honestly, a little bit scary. Bublik didn't suddenly collapse for no reason. He was overwhelmed, outplayed, outthought, and that's where the bigger story begins. Because this win wasn't just about reaching another semifinal in Monte Carlo. It was about history. With this victory, Carlos Alcaraz reached 300 career wins on the ATP Tour. Let that sink in. 300 wins at 22 years old. That alone is insane. But here's where it gets even crazier. Only a handful of players in the history of men's tennis have reached that milestone this fast. We're talking about legends, icons of the game, names that defined entire eras. And Alcaraz just matched one of them, John McEnroe. Both players reached 300 wins in exactly 367 matches. The same number, the same pace. And if you know anything about McEnroe, you know that's not a casual comparison. That's elite territory. But wait, it gets even deeper. Jimmy Connors did it in 365 matches. Rod Laver, just 355. That's the company Alcaraz is now keeping. Not the next generation. Not rising stars. We're talking about all-time greats. And then you look at some other names. Rafael Nadal took 373 matches. Boris Becker needed 374. That means Alcaraz got there faster than both of them. Faster than Nadal. On clay, no less, when Nadal built his entire legacy. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, this doesn't mean Alcaraz is greater than Nadal. Not even close. But it does highlight something incredibly important. The pace of his career is historic. And here's the part nobody is really talking about. Despite hitting this insane milestone, despite dominating matches like this, despite building one of the fastest winning records we've ever seen, Alcaraz himself admitted something surprising. He believes he might lose the world #1 ranking soon, to Jannik Sinner. Now think about that contrast. On one hand, you have a player reaching milestones faster than legends. On the other, you have that same player acknowledging that the top spot isn't guaranteed. That tells you everything about the current state of men's tennis. This isn't a one-man era. This isn't dominance like we saw with Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic at their peaks. This is a battlefield. And right now, Alcaraz and Sinner are at the center of it. But here's where things get interesting. Because moments like this, 300 wins, dominant performances, adapting under pressure, these are the building blocks of something bigger. something that goes beyond rankings. Legacy. And if you listen closely to what Alcaraz said after the match, you can hear that mindset forming. He was happy, of course, smiling, relaxed, clearly proud of the achievement, but he didn't dwell on it. He didn't celebrate like it was the finish line. He said, hopefully many more to come. Simple, calm, almost understated. That's the mentality of someone who isn't chasing milestones, but creating them as a byproduct of something bigger. Now, let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. At 22 years old, with 300 wins already under his belt, adapting mid-match like a veteran, competing in what might be the toughest era of young talent we've seen in years, what is the actual ceiling for Carlos Alcaraz? Because if this is just the beginning, the numbers could get ridiculous. But there's still a twist in this story. And this is where things take a slightly unexpected turn. Because while Alcaraz was dominating on court, building his legacy, hitting milestones, there's another narrative quietly building in the background. Pressure, not the obvious kind, not the crowd expectations or media hype, but the internal pressure of maintaining this level, of knowing that every match, every tournament, every performance is being measured against greatness. And when you're compared to names like McEnroe, Connors, Laver, Nadal, that pressure doesn't go away. It grows. And that's why this next phase of his career is going to be fascinating. Because talent gets you here, but consistency keeps you here. We've seen players rise quickly before. We've seen flashes of brilliance. But sustaining it? That's a different challenge entirely. And this is where the Sinner factor becomes crucial. Because while Alcaraz is hitting milestones, Sinner is building momentum. Quietly, efficiently, relentlessly. And if the rankings do shift, if Alcaraz does lose at #1 spot, it won't be because he's failing. It'll be because the competition is that good. Which brings us back to Monte Carlo. Because his semi-final run isn't just another tournament result. It's part of a bigger picture. Clay season, momentum, confidence, all leading towards the biggest stages. And based on what we saw against Bublik, Alcaraz is not just ready. He's evolving, more patient, more adaptable, more complete. And that should be a warning to everyone else on tour. Because when a player this talented starts mastering the mental side of the game, that's when dominance becomes possible. So now I want to bring this to you. Do you think Carlos Alcaraz is on track to become one of the greatest players of all time? Or do you believe the rise of Jannik Sinner and the competition around him will prevent that kind of dominance? And here's the bigger question. What impressed you more in this match? The milestone of 300 wins, or the way he completely dismantled Bublik after losing rhythm early on? Let me know in the comments, because this debate is only just getting started. And trust me, the next chapter of this rivalry, this era, and Alcaraz's career, it's going to be something special. Because if 300 wins looks like this, imagine what 500 is going to look like.